Okay, welcome to our podcast, You're Beautiful with Dr. Leah. And today we have Heidi Cooper, and I'm really excited because we are going to talk not just about various skin conditions, but we're going to talk about all of it, skin, diets, and hormones. So it's really new. We haven't had that on our podcast yet. So Heidi, introduce yourself and also what do you do now in your normal life and how you became who you are now.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to share with your audience, Leah. I really appreciate it. So I'm a functional medicine practitioner and a licensed esthetician. So it's kind of an interesting combination, and I have a kind of a pain to purpose story, as I think a lot of us in the industry do, right? Like we've had our own challenges that we've dealt with, and looking for answers along the way, we try to help others and give them hope, and that's really kind of what I'm all about. So I started with skin challenges as a teenager, and that kind of got me down this path, and then hormone challenges as an adult after I had my son. And both of those challenges have really kind of created a situation that have provided answers for my clients that I just couldn't have found any other way. So really digging into lab work and really addressing the root cause of why some of these challenges some of my clients are having. So that's the professional life. And then I'm a mom of a 13-year-old son and a wife of a naturopath. So we kind of have that in common, which is pretty cool too. And then I've got a doggie here too. I hope she may introduce herself at some point. So I just kind of want to make everybody aware of that. We try to keep her under wraps, but she's our vice president of security, we always say.
Right. No, that's great. I have my dog, but then I have this rat. I'm in the basement, so I'm always closing my door.
Oh, that's
he comes
awesome.
in and he starts rolling like and making sounds, and people like think what are you doing there? So I'm like, no, it's not me. It's not me. It's my dog. So I'm like, stay away.
I know.
But no, oh my God. So it's so great. And in just like your journey, and it's so fun because I have a 12-year-old daughter also, and then my first child, and then I have a 7-year-old and 5-year-old who just 6-year-old and 5-year-old who just turned 5 today.
Oh, wow.
So and I also had, like you said, after every child I had, with my first one, it was my blood pressure went completely like through the roof, and I still on the meds, and I'm trying to eat like no salt, no etc. Second one was I just felt like bloated. I didn't know what it was. It was the last one. I was diagnosed also with gluten intolerance. So, but it all kind of came after all this hormonal surges, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe talk a little bit how, because your journey has like kind of almost 2 steps, right? The first step
is,
right, when you were like younger, and you were you're still super young, but you were well, you are, but and then just like talking to the journey of becoming like you were talking with esthetician, and then becoming, after hormonal changes, what you are now, the natural health practitioner.
Absolutely. So I'll be 46 this year. So when I was a teenager, I really kind of struggled with acne, and I had an esthetician that came from overseas, and she worked with a much more holistic approach. And this is after I had been on medications with a dermatologist. And I think the next step was Accutane. And I was pretty young. I was probably 13, 14 when I started struggling with some of this stuff, and didn't want to be on some of the Accutane and that sort of thing, and was looking for other options. And so this lady, this esthetician, really took this more holistic approach and worked with my diet and a lot of skincare that was reparative for the skin, as opposed to a lot of the aggressive products. I'm sure you're familiar with that, Leah, too. Like a lot of the skincare products can be so aggressive for acne and other skin conditions, and actually kind of create an environment that's really favorable for some of those challenges to kind of appear on the skin. So she took this completely different approach, and it worked. And it was really a few months of working with her, and my skin had completely cleared up, and we were just dealing with some of the scarring at that point. So I was sold.
So it was just skincare, or was it also we know diet doesn't really help acne, but it was just like more holistic approach to what you
Yes.
use. Wow.
Yes. And I would say she did work with diet a little bit too. That kind of opened my eyes to that. But I would say, I mean, this was a long time ago, right? I think that you could maybe make some dietary tweaks for people at that time, and it was helpful. And what I have observed, so I ended up working under her. She was my mentor for many years, and what she did really worked. And then kind of simultaneously, let's see, I had my son, he'll be 14 this year. So he's 13 now, but he'll be 14 this year. So probably about 13 years ago, I started noticing some of my own health challenges, but then simultaneously with clients, I was seeing all of these skin challenges that weren't responding to that initial approach that I had learned from my mentor and I had used successfully for so many years. So it was this question that was burning in my mind, like, what is going on? Like, I'm having problems, like I'm seeing this with clients, a lot of hormonal stuff. And I was so frustrated because I was sending clients to their doctors to have hormone levels checked, and they would come back and say, my doctor said I'm fine. And I
Of
was
course.
like,
That's what they
right,
say, yes.
yes. And I was like, but you're not. And like, I knew I wasn't either. So it got me down this path to go back to school for the certified natural health practitioner and really a focus on functional medicine and root cause solutions. So that's what got me on that path. And so it's been a long journey, but I have some great answers now.
I know. So, and I know you have your own practice, and you know,
Yes.
you also wrote a book, and we'll talk about all of this, but just give us those, I don't know, 3 tips that you say, this is what
Yeah.
you can start doing today.
So that's such the tough thing. And, you know, I love to share information on social media and share information that will be helpful for people. But the thing that I struggle with, Leah, is that it's so individual, right? Like I always say, like, I can have 5 different people that have acne and they can be for 5 entirely different reasons, right?
Yes.
So so that becomes the challenge in giving, like, okay, there isn't like one diet that's good for everybody, or there isn't, you know, of course, I'm always trying to encourage like more whole food items, right? And I see, and I'm sure you see this too, that gluten, dairy, and sugar tend to be really inflammatory for people. So not that they're necessarily like root cause challenges, you know, like that's the root cause reason for people with some of their challenges, but I think they can be inflammatory and can be problematic for people. So a lot of times we'll have people steer clear of that a little bit till we can address some of the underlying reasons why some of those sensitivities might be there, right? So maybe a whole foods diet. And here's the thing, the body doesn't really differentiate between chemical, emotional, and physical stressors, right? Stress, it's huge. And so we're bombarded with so much environmentally that becomes an additional stressor on the body too. So if we can work on limiting stress, and even that might be through toxic ingredients that we're using in products that are on our bodies and our diet and all of those things, trying to limit some of that exposure is an additional stress as well. And then this is always the tricky one, just the stressful pace in which we live, right? You know,
Yeah.
there's always a lot of strategies. I don't know if you feel this way as a working mom, like there's just a lot of strategies you have to implement with meditation and fit things in where you can to kind of lower that stress burden as well. And then I would say number 3 is really the sleep, right? Because if you're not sleeping, our hormones are wonky, we can't repair, you know, all of those things I think are pretty foundational suggestions for people not knowing what's going on with them specifically, you know.
Right, right.
I think that it's safe to recommend like working on all those things.
Yeah, and I fully agree, because I mean, if there was one approach or 3 things that would help, then
Right,
we all will be cured and we'll all be like, be
right,
happy. And
yes,
so, and like we said, the body is so individual, and we are the only ones, right, who
right.
know, who try to get to know our body and know what works or what doesn't. So interesting. I want to talk about like this also, of course, you do a lot of like whole foods. I want to talk about, like, say, keto or vegan diet, right? Because many people
Mm-hmm.
say, oh, with psoriasis, like I became vegan and I saw that my gut healed, I had less
Yeah,
breakouts or less flare-ups. Some people say I went on keto and it happened. So other people say I went on keto diet and
right.
like high fat, low carb, and oh my God, I was so inflamed, nothing helped me. And even gluten, like I know I'm gluten sensitive, but I know so many people who are not. Gluten can be good for you, but depending how you get that, right? So can you talk a little bit more about like vegan, keto, gluten?
Yeah. So one of my mentors in functional medicine world really teaches a lot of diet variation, and I think that's so key, right? So you know how, and I think we've all been there, like if we've had different skin or health challenges where we're trying to kind of find answers through diet, and I feel like the diet is a critical piece. But there's a saying that the diet, you'll never get well without changing the diet, but the diet alone will never get you well.
Yes.
And so that's one, it's a big piece, but it's still just a piece of the puzzle, right? And so I think that a lot of times when people are searching for answers, they get kind of hung up on, I know I have, like being keto or being vegan or being paleo. And you know how you can start working with something and it works really well initially, and then over time, like the body's not doing as well. And so this is where that diet variation comes into play. And what I really try to teach my clients is being intuitive with what's going on with their body, right? So you know how, like, for instance, avocado, it's like the latest, like everybody's promoting avocado or kale, or, and those can be great foods for people, right? But depending on what's going on with you, I've had clients come in that are like, I just, like, I'm trying to eat avocado, but I'm like having these weird reactions, and they keep doing it, and I'm like, your body's trying to tell you something, right? Like if you listen, you know. So I think that intuitive piece and really getting people to connect the dots with what's going on with their body and how they're responding is really more critical than adhering solely to a specific dietary discipline that they feel like they can't veer away from, because I don't know that that's sustainable either, right? You know, if you're trying to keep
I've done, like a few years ago, I've done like to lose weight after like my child, and then I've done keto for 3 months, which is I think way too long. I lost a ton of weight. I think I lost like 15 pounds. I was so happy. And then I put a little bit, when I start eating a little bit of carbs, boom. And I always felt bloated. My face felt bloated. I did not feel well. So you're right. It's that balance. You know, my husband, he loves salads. We just go to Whole Foods and we buy like 10 different leaves, you know, kale and I don't know, like all these names I can't even pronounce. And he makes this big salad and he loves it. And I'm like, wow, it smells good. Every time I eat it, oh my God, my stomach hurts. I blow up. So I'm like, well, it's supposed to be good for you, but it's right. Like you say, listen to your body, right? Like I know for me works when I warm it all up and I smush it, then I can do it. But I can't eat it raw or like, I don't know, the whole thing about lectins, right? Not necessarily, it worked for some, it doesn't, but some things that your gut can't digest necessarily easily. It's probably not the greatest thing, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I went through a phase a few years ago where I was doing green drinks every day, right? Like just basically greens in a blender. And, you know, that's one of those things that everybody sees as healthy everywhere. And I did great with it for a little while, but I had some SIBO issues, which I'm sure you're familiar with, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And when you have something like that going on, that can be really problematic. And I had to kind of stay away from that entirely. But that goes back to just like really listening to your body too. Like, and I think that's the danger sometimes in all of this information that's on the internet is there's some really fantastic information out there, but it doesn't necessarily pertain to every person, you know, individually, right? And so like doing whatever like the latest, you know, superfood is, if that's not right for you, you really have to kind of be in tune. And to your point, like, you know, you could eat salads all day long and it could be actually doing more damage if there's something going on there, right?
Yeah. And I really like that you are so objective and so in tune and saying, let's look at you individually as a person and see what works for you, right? And that's why you are a health practitioner. Say, I work with you, I work with you, I work with you. I don't have a magic formula that I give to everyone and it's the same, right? So I think that's what makes you so great. And being so objective, not saying, oh, latest trend is this, or being vegan is great, or being, you know, carnivore is good. So I think And also, even for many women having a hormonal cycle,
Yes.
as we
Yes.
have, I think in the beginning of the month, this might be good for us. At the end of the month,
Yes.
this might be good for us. Can you
You are
talk a little bit
exactly,
about
yeah.
this? Because they even talk about exercise, that exercise at a certain point, will make you gain weight instead of
Yes.
losing, right? So
Absolutely. Absolutely. So going back to what we were talking about earlier about the different stressors, I think culturally we've been kind of conditioned to like eat less, exercise more, that's going to fix everything. And it couldn't be further from the truth, right?
correct.
In fact, that exercise, and I'm a huge proponent of exercise, don't get me
Oh,
wrong.
yeah.
I mean, I exercise 5 days a week, but you have to do what the right exercise is for your body, depending on what's going on with your health at the time. So looking back, that was part of my hormonal crash, is I was doing these really intense couple-hour workouts right after I had my son to lose that baby weight, right? And working all day and coming home to an infant. And I look back now, I was like, that was the silliest thing I could have done, because it, my body just gave out at one point. It just completely, I had the hormones of like an 80-year-old at 30 something years old,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what happens because we're not designed to take on that sort of stress and have it be helpful, right?
Yeah.
So, and to your point about the cycle too, so here's another interesting thing. There was a keto is like the big thing now, and there's some research, I don't know if you've looked into this, that shows like how the microbiome is influenced with women, particularly on keto, and how it really can kind of make hormones go wonky.
Yes.
So so I'm a big fan. If somebody's going to incorporate something like keto, then maybe even for certain days out of the month, or certain weeks that aren't right before the cycle. And as you know, like right before the cycle, you want some of those hormone progesterone building foods right before the cycle. To get, you have to have the raw materials for your body to be able to make those hormones correctly, right?
Yeah. It's fascinating. Yeah, I've been listening to some of that, because for me the eye-opening was that, I mean, men also have hormones, but they're more stable. And you can't say, oh, women are hormonal. No, we are all hormonal, man, woman, everyone, right? So whatever you are. But yes, we are much more affected because we have all this
More moving parts, huh?
Right. I know. So, and that was great. And I guess athletes are very much, when they're being trained, coached by their trainers, they eat certain way, they exercise certain way, but it's kind of like, and with internet, like you said, internet, I mean, it's great and it's not great, because if you look up, is kale good for me? You'll see everything. Or is kale bad for me? You'll see all the articles. It's whatever you want to hear, almost, that's what you will get. So I think going and consulting with someone who knows and can guide you a certain way is very, very important, listening more to, and kind of making, your own decision about what might or might not work for your specific body. So, no, I love that.
And I'm sure you run into this too. Like lab work can really tell you some amazing things. You can really find out if somebody's got like chronic infections going on, or like parasitic infections. There's different things that you can look at there that I know sometimes people look at working with somebody as an investment, but I see a lot of times, I'm sure you run into this too, where people have spent an exorbitant amount of money trying to figure it out on their own. And you know what I mean? And so they'll look at what, who all the influencers are on social media and stuff. And I'm not bashing them. There's some really good information out there, but it may not, once again, be specific to them.
Oh yeah.
And you dial in those labs, and you really can hone in on exactly what's going on with that person and get them on a path much more quickly and much more simply a lot of times than them trying to, figure it out themselves.
I agree. And that's why it's so important not to go and listen to this specific person because he or she is an influencer, but really say, okay, that works for that specific body and maybe their audience, but it might not work for me. I think, yes, just kind of understanding. And also, especially, I think, like you also said, it's affected by your age, it's affected by your gender, it's affected by the food you eat. It's affected by the medications you take, right? Like with, if you had SIBO, you know, like antibiotics. You know, I've studied pharmacy in the Netherlands, you know, and they never give it, like, we were taught not to give any antibiotics to anyone. It's like the worst thing in the world. And then when I start living in US, I was like, wow, they're like just giving it out, you know, like, okay, here you go. Okay, here you go. And I'm like, whoa, that's so bad for you, because it is very bad for your gut, right?
Right.
Right. So, you know,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I find that so fascinating, like just hearing that you, like, you know, in the Netherlands, like there's just such a different perspective on it. And I'm sure you see this here too. I think, honestly, if I look back, Leah, like when I was a teenager and I was put on like long-term antibiotics for my skin before I found that esthetician, I look at now as an adult and I think, did that probably really played a role in my hormonal drop, you know, fallout. And I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's too, you know, during that period as well. So autoimmune thyroid, and it begs the question, like, was some of that vulnerability because my microbiome certainly wasn't as diverse as it should be, you know, and all of those things for being on those long-term antibiotics really affected some gene expression turning on as an adult, you know?
yeah.
So I love that, like other places, it's looked at as sometimes they're necessary, right? Like it can be a life or death thing with antibiotics, but
absolutely.
that's very different than like you said, handing them out kind of like candy here.
I know,
You know?
I know. And the thing is, I think it's just the system, like the healthcare system in Netherlands was more like you would never get anything, you know. It's more like do more natural approach, which not always worked. I like, in general, like from my personal perspective, the healthcare system in US better. It just, I feel some things can be dialed down, right? And some things need to go up, you know. And like countries like Netherlands are great, but I remember my first child, I was actually giving birth in Netherlands, and they told me, come on, you're a strong woman, you don't need any epidural, you're going to do it, like. And I was like, and at the end it was C-section, but I was like, are you guys crazy? Like, come on, we're not in the Middle Ages anymore. So
there's a happy medium, right?
it needs to be a happy medium. I so agree. Yes. Oh my God, I'm like, we've been speaking and speaking. So tell a little bit about, because I mean, you wrote a book, and also about your work and where people can find you. And I will put it all on YouTube and Instagram, LinkedIn.
Awesome.
But just kind of tell a little bit also more what you do and where they can find you.
Absolutely. So we'll start with the book. This is one of the blessings, I guess, of the quarantine last year, is it gave me some time to write this book that I had kind of been on my heart for a long time. And it's called Healthy Hormones, Happy Skin. It's a free ebook, and we'll share that link with your audience too,
Yes,
so that they can
I have it. Yes, perfect.
can tap into that. And so it was something, going back to what I had, you know, shared with you about seeing all of these hormone challenges with clients years ago, and just some foundational things in that book that someone can start working on that are going to be helpful for skin, but like also helpful for hormonal challenges as well. And just going back to like some of the environmental exposures and trying to limit those. You know, I work a lot with cellular detoxification. I have found that a lot of what's going on with people is so much of what we're bombarded with environmentally. I mean, even people trying to eat really clean and do have a lifestyle that's as healthy as it possibly can be. There are just some ways to work with binders and cellular detoxification that cross the blood-brain barrier, things to remove some of these toxins that are interfering with the body working as it should. I always kind of look at, when we see some health challenges going on, whether it's skin or otherwise, the body's really amazing. And if you remove that interference, the body will heal itself. So there's just some information in that book that can be helpful foundationally for somebody to kind of start working with. And that's what I would recommend first, is like working with those things. And then if you've kind of mastered some of that, then it, you know, it behooves them to kind of then work with a practitioner like you or I, you know. But yeah, you can find me on Instagram at @SkinsideOut_Heidi Cooper. And then I've got a YouTube channel, Skinside Out Heidi Cooper also, and just try to put some good general information up there with people. But yeah, I'm always I see clients here. I'm in Texas, just north of Dallas, and I see clients one-on-one here, but I also see people virtually too. So
okay, that's great. I think especially now virtually is
oh,
is
absolutely
the way to go,
yeah.
right? So yeah, exactly. And they can find you virtually, basically on your
Yes,
website, right? So
yes,
you can schedule a
yes.
meeting. Yeah. Okay, great. And I'll put it all there. So no, this is so great. It's been it's been so great connecting with you. And I think there's so many insights. I think I'll need to bring you back so we can because we touched base on so many things just superficially,
I know.
really start dissecting. And I'm going to read your book. I'm really I need that. I need to,
Awesome.
understand all those things. So great. Well, thank you so much. And thanks so much for your time. And for everyone who is listening, yeah, please follow Heidi, and I'll put all the stuff down there, and follow us as well, and subscribe to our channel. And we'll be back soon. So thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much, Leah. I
much.
really
Yes.
appreciate it.
You too. Have a
Thank
very
you.
good day, and we'll be in touch soon.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.